Hare Krishna. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome to everyone visiting the temple or watching online. This is our daily Srimad Bhagavatam class. At 9 o'clock we'll be serving breakfast in the temple, so please stick around if you can. Today we'll be reading from the 4th canto particularly. After a weekend of festivities, getting back to our regular schedule on Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's now the 22nd chapter of the 4th canto, entitled Pṛthu Maharaj Meeting with the Kumaras, and the verse is text 37. So please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Daivim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, you can pull it up on your phones if it's hard to see the board. The verse is 37 from chapter 22. Please repeat after me. Tattvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha Dehendriyasu Dishanatmabhir Avratanam Yakshetra Vitta Pataya Hridi Vishwagavihi Pratyakchakasti Bhagavam Stamavehi Sosmi Tattvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha Dehendriyasu Dishanatmabhir Avratanam Yakshetra Vittapataya Hridi Vishwagavihi Pratyakchakasti Bhagavam Stamavehi Sosmi. Prabhu's any want to take it? Tattvam Narendra Jagatam Atutashtusham Cha Dehendriyashu Dishanatmabhir Avratanam Yakshetra Vittapataya Hridi Vishwagavi Pratyakchagasti Bhagavam Stamavehi Sosmi. Tattvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha Dehendriyasu Dishanatmabhir Avratanam Yakshetra Vittapataya Hridi Vishwagavi Pratyakchakasti bhagavam stavavehi sosmi. Tattvam narendra jagatam atatashtu shamcha. Dehendriyasu dishanatma biravritanam. Yakshetra vittapataya hridi vishvagavi. Pratyakchakasti bhagavam stamavehi sosmi. Okay, word for word translation by Srila Prabhupada. Tat, therefore, Tvam, you, Nara Indra, O best of kings, Jagatam, of the moving, Atha, therefore, Tashtu Sham, the immovable, Cha, also, Deha, body, Indriya, senses, Asu, life air, Dhishana, by consideration, Atmabhihi, self-realization, Avritanam, those who are covered in that way. Ya, one who, Kshetravit, knower of the field, Tapataya, by controlling, Hridi, within the heart, Vishvak, everywhere, Avi, manifest, Pratyak, in every hair follicle, Chikasti, shining, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Tam, unto him, Avehi, try to understand, Sa Asmi, I am that. Sanat-kumāra advised the king, therefore, my dear King Pṛthu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body, made of the life air and intelligence. Please repeat after me the translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Sanat-kumāra advised the king. Therefore, my dear King Pṛthu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul, in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body, made of the life air and intelligence. Srila Prabhupada ki. Purport. In this verse, it is specifically advised that instead of wasting time in the human form of life endeavoring for economic development and sense gratification, one should try to cultivate spiritual values by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is existing with the individual soul within everyone's heart. The individual soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature are both sitting within this body, which is covered by gross and subtle elements. To understand this is to attain actual spiritual culture. There are two ways of advancing in spiritual culture: by the method of the impersonalist philosophers and by devotional service. The impersonalist comes to the conclusion that he and the Supreme Spirit are one, whereas devotees or personalists realize the absolute truth by understanding that because the absolute truth is the supreme predominator, and we living entities are predominated, our duty is to serve him. The Vedic injunctions say, Tat Tvamasi, you are the same, and Soham, I am the same. The impersonalist conception of these mantras is that the Supreme Lord, or the Absolute Truth, and the living entity are one, But from the devotee's point of view, these mantras assert that both the Supreme Lord and ourselves are of the same quality. Tattvamasi ayamatma Brahma. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entity are spirit. Understanding this is self-realization. The human form of life is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord and oneself by spiritual cultivation of knowledge. One should not waste valuable life simply engaged in economic development and sense gratification. In this verse, the word kshetravit is also important. This word is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 2. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetram ityabidhiyate. This body is called kshetra, and the field, the field of activities. And the proprietors of the body, the individual soul and the supersoul sitting within the body, are both called kshetravit. But there is a difference between the two kinds of kshetravit. One kshetravit, or knower of the body, namely the Paramatma, or the supersoul, is directing the individual soul. When we rightly take the direction of the supersoul, our life becomes successful. He is directing from within and from without. From within he is directing as Chaitya Guru, or the spiritual master sitting within the heart. Indirectly he is also helping the living entity by manifesting himself as the spiritual master outside. In both ways, the Lord is giving directions to the living entity so that he may finish up his material activities and come back home, back to Godhead. The presence of the Supreme Soul and the individual soul within the body can be perceived by anyone by the fact that as long as the individual soul and the super soul are both living within the body is always shining and fresh. But as soon as the super soul and the individual soul give up possession of the gross body, it immediately decomposes. One who is spiritually advanced can thus understand the real difference between a dead body and a living body. In conclusion, one should not waste his time by so-called economic development and sense gratification, but should cultivate spiritual knowledge to understand the supersoul and the individual soul and their relationship. In this way, by advancement of knowledge, one can achieve liberation and the ultimate goal of life. It is said that if one takes to the path of liberation, even rejecting his so-called duties in the material world, he is not a loser at all. But a person who does not take to the path of liberation, yet carefully executes economic development and sense gratification, loses everything. Narad's statement before Vyasadeva is appropriate in this connection. Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harer, bhajan apakvo tapatet tato yadi, yatra kvava bhadram abhud amushyakim, ko varta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. From Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 5, Text 17. If a person, out of sentiment or for some other reason, takes to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and in due course of time does not succeed in coming to the ultimate goal of life, or falls down due to the lack of experience, there is no loss. But for a person who does not take to devotional service, yet executes his material duties very nicely, there is no gain. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna. All right, very auspicious opportunity this morning to relish the transcendental nectar that flows out from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Despite all my disqualification to be, attempting to convey or to expand on what has been given so far, this transcendental literature, even when spoken by somebody as full-on as myself, unqualified, imperfect, the message remains pure and complete. So all of us have a special opportunity this morning to take part in Shravanam and Kirtanam. So yeah, please, if you like, at some point you can contribute. I feel a bit unprepared and unequipped to speak anything valuable on this. But if you have any insights or corrections or anything during the class, please jump in. It's a very fundamental conception that we're looking at today, actually. I just recently started reading through Bhagavad Gita again. At the moment I'm studying Srimad Bhagavatam as my daily reading practice, but I travel to uni 5 days a week, and I bring my Kindle with me, and I realized I can't read the same book in the book itself and on the Kindle, because then I get all mixed up. So I was trying to think what to read, and for some reason I just wasn't. I was thinking I've read Bhagavad Gita enough times now. I don't need to read that anymore. I was looking for other books, and I was going through other books, and my mentor actually prompted me to read Bhagavad Gita, and I was thinking, what, Bhagavad Gita again? But we can see here that actually the very first thing that Sri Krishna teaches Arjuna is moving beyond this bodily conception of life and understanding the Self, the Supreme Lord, and the relationship between those two. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, I read in a purport recently in Srimad Bhagavatam only, where I was just most recently up to, he was explaining that all of the miseries of the conditioned soul are none other than the bodily conception of life. So this idea that we are these bodies, that I am Edward Breslin, I have Caucasian skin, I have sort of functioning limbs and ears and nose and tongue. I like avocado toast. I like, I grew up in Lane Cove. I do all these things, right? All these designations. I'm a uni student. I used to play guitar. These are my upasanas. These are my impressions, my identifications. And they're functional, they're useful for getting about in the world, but they're very hampering to one's advancement in spiritual life when they come up again and again, because they create a sense of ego, false ego. So this is where it starts, with the bodily conception, with the false ego. As soon as there is false ego, lust, pride, anger, envy, all of these things which I know my heart is totally filled with, right? Even after practicing Krishna consciousness or pretending to, my heart is still filled with this lust, pride, greed, and envy. And every day we're fighting it, trying not to offend Vaishnavas, trying not to, come before the Lord like a hypocrite, We're trying our best to be a genuine, sincere devotee. But these things are there, and why are they there? We have to ask this question, when again and again and again we fall short in our efforts in devotional service. We have to ask ourselves why. Why when I chant inattentively are these things not going away? So it says here, Krishna is telling us again and again, not just in the first few chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, but all throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're hearing. Actually, I was just thinking recently about this. Srila Prabhupada explains that one is closest with the spiritual master when they, with sincerity, meditate on their instructions. Right? So, like, there's an example of like the fly that's sort of sitting on the lap of the guru. They might be very, very close to the guru, but actually all they're doing is causing disturbance. Like that, Srila Prabhupada said that while he was traveling and preaching all over the world, maybe his godbrothers might have been there serving his spiritual master. Not at that time, but Srila Prabhupada was explaining that he was never closer to his spiritual master than when he was engaged in executing that instruction, or meditating on executing that instruction with an intense desire, with sincerity. So when it's crazy to think what a benediction we've been given by Srila Prabhupada in the form of this Srimad Bhagavatam. For myself, like a Westerner growing up in Australia, to be able to hear about these exalted personalities like Sanat-kumāra or Pṛthu Maharaj or Narada Muni, Srila Vyasadeva, just to read their instructions that they give to their, this is again and again, this is the theme of Srimad Bhagavatam. Some devotee gets into some difficult situation, and then some, source of authority arises in the scene, and they give some instruction. And we're just reading through, but actually all of these instructions are for us, and Srila Prabhupada is passing them down as our, connection to the parampara. But even Lord Shiva, we can learn from Lord Shiva. We can meditate on the instructions of Lord Shiva when he instructs the Prajapatis, the topmost Vaishnava. We can hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam what he wants his disciples to do, and we can endeavor to follow those instructions. Not that we're becoming, initiated by Lord Shiva, but we can develop a relationship if we can sincerely follow these instructions. And these instructions are eternal, and that's how these exalted personalities are also eternal, because they are simply repeating the message of Sri Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna says, Evam Parampara, that previously he had spoken this message of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god, and he taught it to his son, and to then the forefathers of mankind. And that same message was spoken on the Bhagavad Gita, right? Arjuna is embodying the perfect disciple. Why? Why is Arjuna the perfect disciple? Sorry? Yes, the chain was broken. That's why Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, to re-establish the true path of religion. Why do we see Arjuna as sort of an ideal disciple, or something that we should strive to? Yeah, so Arjuna was a pure devotee, and so Krishna, through him, spoke up Bhagavad Gita. Mm. Yeah, exactly. What are those qualities that he displayed that we can follow in? Yeah, perfect. So Sagar Prabhu explained like how Arjuna is in this dilemma. What's that verse? Um, Shreya. No, no. Oh, I've forgotten. But yeah, basically, he's seeing, looking at the situation through a bodily conception, which is, as a pure devotee, Krishna has put him in this position to teach us the Bhagavad Gita. And so through that bodily conception, he's thinking, what good can come from this war? Um, what good is there in engaging in these dharmic activities if it just leads to either victory, kingdom, heavenly planets, whatever it is, how can I desire it if it leads to the suffering of others? That's a really we're not kshatriyas, we're not in that situation. So why is that relevant to us? That's the question. Like how can we put ourselves in that position of Arjuna and try to understand what is required of a disciple, so that we can start really taking advantage of all of these instructions that we're being given, right? And Arjuna is, karpanya dosho pahatasu bhavaha prachami tvam dharma sambuddha chetaha yat shreyasya nishchita bruhitan me shishyasteham shari tvam mam prapannam. That he's revealing his heart to Krishna, and he's saying that, Srila Prabhupada explains that he is an ideal disciple because he is a friend, he is Krishna's friend, and so he is in a relationship with Krishna of love as a devotee. He's not just like coming to take something from him. They already have an established relationship, but then here Arjuna expresses to him that all of my intelligence is gone. I have become weakened by miserly qualities, and in this state I can't distinguish right from wrong, and therefore I need you to tell me. So therefore I have become your disciple, and I have requested you to become my spiritual master. I was just recently reading how Chitraketu Maharaj, when Narada Muni and Angira Rishi come to his house, the way he welcomes them, he puts them on the seat. As we heard, Pṛthu Maharaj has done with the 4 Kumaras. He, washes their feet and glorifies them and welcomes them nicely. But he says to them that he requests them to illuminate his heart, because his heart is so dark and contaminated, and he finds himself to be like a dog or a pig, who is completely like filthy and lowly and contaminated, and in such a state he is in this illusion, so to put ourselves in that humble position. I also wanted to look at this bhajan it came across recently by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In such humility, he sings. Yeah, maybe we'll quickly sing it. Karta. Amar Jivan. This is Amar Jivan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Amar Jivan Sada Paperate Nahi ko Punyera Lesha. Parere udvega diachi jai koto. Parere udvega diachi jai koto. Diachi jivere klesha. Amara Jivana Shadapaperata Nahiko Punyera Lesha. So I'll just quickly read the translation. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right, who is a acharya of like the highest class from our parampara, a pure devotee. I wish I could speak more of his glories. I need to look more into his life. But yeah, just by even hearing the way he speaks about his supposed, disqualifications, just hearing that, it breaks the hearts of the Vaishnavas. And just his humility is enough to see how exalted he really is. But he says here in this bhajan that, I am an impious sinner and have caused others great anxiety and trouble. I have never hesitated to perform sinful acts for my own enjoyment. Devoid of all compassion, concerned only with my own selfish interests, I am remorseful seeing others happy. I am a perpetual liar, and the misery of others is a source of great pleasure for me. The material desires within the core of my heart are unlimited. I am wrathful, devoted to false pride and arrogance, intoxicated by vanity and bewildered by worldly affairs. Envy and egotism are the ornaments that I wear. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resist all pious deeds, yet I am very active and enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. For worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. Thus I am destroyed by my own greed and am always lustful. A vile, wicked man such as this, rejected by godly people, is a constant offender. I am such a person, devoid of all good works, forever inclined toward evil, worn out and wasted by various miseries. Now, in old age, deprived of all means of success, humbled and poor, Bhaktivinoda submits his tale of grief at the feet of the Supreme Lord. So this is the mood of a disciple who is fertile and ready for instruction. And this mood should never go away. Actually, it should only increase, and we should only become more convinced. At our level, to be humble like that usually takes, some serious, like smack in the face moment where we realize, we're forced to realize, because we actually display those qualities. At that point, it's not so much humility, it's more like, you've just realized who you actually are. So you're just forced to admit it. But I think humility means realizing, even when Krishna is empowering us, or devotees are glorifying us, to remember that this is as a conditioned soul, who is not infallible, not independent, like the Supreme Soul, the Paramatma. This is actually, who we are and what we're capable of without the mercy of the Lord. This is who we are. Without the mercy of the Vaishnavas, where would we be? So remembering this always, we become fertile and humble, and that means our advancement in spiritual life can continue. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that the Supreme Lord is so merciful that he instructs the individual soul from within and from without, right? So as the Chaitya Guru, Krishna gives us instruction, and as the Diksha Guru and Shiksha Gurus, Krishna gives us instructions. So it's said that Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. But it is also said that Guru Rupa Krishna Kripa, that the Guru is the form, is the manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So when we sing Sakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastrai Uktas Tata Bhavyate Eva Sadbi, that the spiritual master is none different from Sri Krishna, we understand that although he is a living entity, not Vishnu Tattva, but Jiva Tattva, he is representing the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So to receive that mercy, we have to humble ourselves like Arjuna did on the battlefield, and like all of these Vaishnavas do all through Srimad Bhagavatam. And then that transcendental message can be received. And this all begins with understanding this tattva of the kshetra and the kshetravid, right, or the kshetragya, one who is aware of the field of activities. So this material body with 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, right, and made up of the 5 material elements. This is the field of activities, and it also includes the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, the subtle body. So this is one has to understand through instruction from the spiritual master and through careful study of these scriptures. Again and again and again, we have to go deeper into really penetrating this truth. Conceptually, it might seem quite simple, right? I've learned there's 5, 3, 5. There's all these elements, groups of elements. You can memorize those. You can say, "I'm the spirit soul, Krishna, Jivara Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas." We can memorize like this, but we have to really, really study with humility and sincerity before the spiritual master and before these scriptures. And we have to pray to the Chaitya Guru and to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath to actually realize this knowledge. Because as long as there's lust, envy, anger, greed in our hearts, you can be sure that it's coming from this false identification. Srila Prabhupada said that there is the misconception of the conditioned soul is none other than the bodily conception of life. So as long as we're struggling with these material anarthas, we can be sure that we haven't spent enough time trying to penetrate these conclusions. And I was just reading recently as well in the second chapter of Adi Lila, it was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was establishing how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna. And to do that, first he has to establish to the readers that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By establishing that, then he can establish that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is equivalently the Supreme Personality of Godhead, based on all of these scriptures. But doing that, he presents so many arguments from so many angles, from so many various scriptures, to just to get this simple message, which is the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the fountainhead of all avatars. So he goes through and establishes that from various shastras. But eventually he just says, E mata nana rupa kare purva paksh tahare nirjite Bhagavan Padyadaksh. That these arguments which try to challenge this position of Krishna, they come in various forms. But the poetry of the Bhagavatam, it completely rejects all of them. It completely transcends all of them. So despite all of that shastra, all of that logic and philosophical argument, the beauty that is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or you could also say Bhagavat Padyadaksh, right? The poetry of the Supreme Lord, right? The poetry of the Vaishnavas, the Bhagavat, those who have the Supreme Lord in their hearts. When they express their love for the Supreme Lord through kirtan, that completely transcends all logical debate. Srila Prabhupada said in the purports that there's 2 paths to spiritual knowledge. One is jnana and one is devotional service. One is philosophical speculation and one is bhakti. And both approach this realization of the self. But Srila Prabhupada explains that while in Brahma Samhita it says that pantas tu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manaso muni pungavanam sopyasti yat prapadasimnya vachintya tatvai govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, that Lord Brahma worships that Supreme Lord who, after millions and millions, koti shatavatsara sampragamyo, millions of lifetimes, yogis who are engaged in the controlling the life airs through the breathing process, and Gyanis, Manasomuni Pungavanam, who have approached the spiritual understanding through so many angles of vision, millions and millions of births. That Supreme Lord who they are all seeking is easily attained by devotion, so easily attained by devotion. And how is that, right? How is it that Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, that one who is engaged in devotional service, becomes immediately liberated or attains this self-realization? It's because the first thing that Krishna directs Arjuna to understand is that you are not this body, dehinosminyata, dehe komarang yovanam jara. And again, here it is all the way through Srimad Bhagavatam as well. This bodily conception of life is the original misconception. And so, as a devotee who is trying to sincerely serve and please Krishna, we try to sincerely understand what he is explaining to us, and we try to sincerely follow his instructions. And so, that first instruction is taking us to self-realization. The very first thing that comes for a devotee who is sincerely trying to understand what Sri Krishna wants him to understand is that they transcend the bodily conception of life. By following like that, by studying carefully, and by really trying to understand our situation, how fallen we are, and how much we're struggling in this material world, then we can really try to penetrate and look clearly into understanding this simple concept, which is actually very, very deep and needs to be repeated again and again and again, just to come close to understanding it. I think we can end it there. If there are any questions or corrections or anything anyone else wants to contribute. Yeah. Yeah. It's very hard. Yes. Suman Prabhu is asking, we hear, why is it so hard? We hear all these things, these nice instructions, and we might feel like so convinced when we hear it. Sometimes we hear, someone who actually has really understood some of these things that I've been trying to talk about, but someone who's actually understood it and who's very, very, who lives by it as well. And when we hear that, someone like that speak, we feel so inspired, and we feel like, that's it, I'm done, I'm ready, Krishna consciousness, let's go. And then the next day, even like just the same day, you just walk away and immediately it's gone, all of that is gone. Yeah, because we have so many lifetimes of conditioning. But it's tricky because, so we think about it sometimes, it's like there's such a long history of going against spiritual knowledge, acting in ignorance, turning away from Krishna and trying to just enjoy our material senses, in forgetfulness of Krishna, in forgetfulness of our original position. So many lifetimes like that, it seems like then what can I, how can I try? What's the, but then we remember, like Eka Krishna Nama, Sarva Kare Sarva Papakshay, that just one name of Krishna can obliterate all sinful reactions. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that we can't even imagine how many, we can't even conceive of how many sinful activities we've performed. We've been through every species of life, right? And in every species of life, in animal species, it's you're just living out karma. But if you think about some of the things that animals do, like a mother spider will kill the husband after she lays all of the eggs. That's a sinful reaction. That's like she's living out a sinful reaction. So what was the sin that led the spider to have that as their nature, to kill the husband after giving birth to all the children? What is people are taking birth as spiders means people are doing activities which lead to that reaction. That's just like one example of something that we have to live out in the animal forms of life. So what activities we've done in the past we can't even conceive of, and these are all in our subconscious mind, you know. So chanting Hare Krishna, it's just one name can obliterate all of those activities. We should be, when we're chanting, we should be looking for that one name, you know, eagerly searching out and waiting, like, when will that one name come? And Prabhupada explains in the Ajamil pastime that actually it was his piety in his early life, you know, as a brahmana who was actually a devotee of Lord Vishnu, Narayan. It was all of that piety, which yesham tvanta gatam papam, that only one who has done pious activity for that person advancing in spiritual life is much quicker. So by getting onto the platform of goodness, we can speed up this process of inculcating those instructions and making them appear in our life quicker. But then it's difficult to be pious, right? So how to get onto that platform? And that comes by association. It comes by patience as well. Utsaha nishchayat dharyat. We should be enthusiastic, but we should also be patient. I really struggle trying to understand that. Like, for me, it feels like I'm either really, really patient and therefore not at all enthusiastic. You know, you kind of just get, all right, this Krishna consciousness thing is harder than I thought. I'm just going to not try so hard. I'll just go with the flow, you know. It'll work out. And then you lose all of that enthusiasm, you know. And you see people advancing and doing so much service, and you're sitting there like being patient. So it's like, oh, maybe I should pick up the pace. So then I start being enthusiastic, and suddenly I lose all of my patience, you know. So I start like trying to take services from other devotees, and you know, or like, you know, getting so attached to the results, you know, of my activities that I get, you know, angry and frustrated when they don't go how I want it to go, and then that's my enthusiasm. You know, so Srila Rupa Goswami is telling us Utsaha nishchayat dharyat, that we have to be both patient and enthusiastic. Huh? What? How is that possible? You know, I can't understand it. But Srila, His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj says that patience without enthusiasm is tamagun. Enthusiasm without patience is rajagun. But patience with enthusiasm is sattvagun. Because, and I think a lot of things are like that actually, if you look at it. Sattvagun is like the balancing of these two opposite kind of qualities. It's sort of like, feels like it's somewhere in the middle, or you bring these two things which are really seemingly opposite together, and when you can hold them, which requires maturity, intelligence, guidance of superiors, experience, you know, falling over again and again and again. It's like a razor's edge. Sattvagun is literally, it's like, you can't even see it. It's such a thin line to walk. Sattvagun. And you just go a little bit to one side and you fall down into tamagun, rajagun. So we have to walk that line, and we have to fall again and again and again. My spiritual master always says devotional service is like shaving. You know, if you're just a little bit inattentive, you know, just for a second, you can cut yourself, and there'll be a lot of blood. You know, so we have to be really, really attentive to walk that line, get established in goodness as far as possible in this, you know, modern world with all of our, you know, conditioning. And then we can advance quickly, and we can take on these instructions quickly, hopefully. Or we can just keep struggling, you know, keep falling. Doesn't matter. Either way, you know, just keep chanting Hare Krishna. I think it's important to realize that as well. It's important to fall sometimes in Krishna consciousness and see how, you know, even in the most, you know, dire situations, even when you've done something, you know, despicable, and you just feel like, how can I still be a devotee after this? To go through that and to then continue chanting Hare Krishna, you know, the next day, wake up and chant Hare Krishna. To prove to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath that, like, no matter what, you know, even if I do something wrong, you know, what to speak of, you know, like Mahaprabhu's, you know, whether you, you know, aren't present before me, or, you know, hurt me by your tough embrace, something like that. Uh, Even if we do something wrong, even if we commit all these terrible activities, I think that's often the reason why people go away from Krishna consciousness, is that sense of guilt or like, um, you know, breaking of a regulative principle or something like that. And then, your intelligence gets polluted and you offend Vaishnavas, and then it's just too much, you just move away. But if even through all of these situations, even if they arise, even if we can't walk the line of Sattva Gun perfectly, if we can just keep chanting Hare Krishna, just keep associating with devotees, just tolerate, when it gets harder and harder and harder, to keep tolerating. And then it gets even harder, and we keep tolerating, and it feels like, I can't, this is it, this is the breaking point. If we can then keep tolerating and just keep coming and chanting, just think about how much purification comes from that experience, just by holding on. And then maybe we can get through this, anartha nivritti, cleansing of all of these anarthas, and get fixed in devotional service. Be one of those devotees, who is just every day fixed up, every day attending the morning program, every day chanting attentively. How beautiful would that be? Yeah, but it's possible. Krishna says, Bahavo jnana tapasa putamadbhavam agataha, that many persons who have endeavored, in purifying their hearts through knowledge, spiritual knowledge and austerities, as his devotees, as bhaktas, many persons have become perfect in the past, have achieved the perfection of human life. So actually we just have to follow the process. Okay, thanks Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, entire Gaur Premanandi.